10 to 8. Now, plans to put a defibrillator inside every school across England look set to go ahead, thanks largely to a campaign that was started by Mark King in memory of his son, Oliver.
Oliver was 12 when he had a cardiac arrest during a swimming lesson. There was no defibrillator on hand and it took an ambulance 20 minutes to reach him.
Well, in the years since then, following Oliver's death, his dad Mark has called on politicians, sports people and celebrities to support his campaign for better access to that kind of equipment.
Many schools already have them, but the government says it aims to plug the gaps by funding a further 20,000 kits.
Well, Mark King joins us now in the studio. Morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Thanks for coming in. Also joined by Naomi Rees-Isset, whose son Jamie died almost a year ago following a cardiac arrest, and James Cant from Resuscitation Council UK. Good morning to all of you. Thank you so much for coming in. Mark, we've talked before about the urgency you feel for this. Do you feel like you're about to get there?
Well, yeah, we are there in our first hurdle. You know, and ultimately we want to see full legislation that whenever you see a fire extinguisher in a public building, a defib should be above it. And the relevant amount of people awareness trained in the use of a defib.
What's the situation now? Where are we now? How many are there?
Well, we've campaigned, as you know, and in April last year we met with Nadim Zawali, who was the Education Minister, and he passed it off that every school should have one. We've never asked them to pay for this, the government to pay for this, but Nadim said, we'll have a little look into what kind of funding we've got for this, Mark. Then another reshuffle, and you're like, oh, where are you going to land? Only the Chancellor. So, right on the train, pen in hand, signing off Nadim. And that's what he done, a man of his word. So this month, January, in the next week to 10 days, that's when the rollout will begin.
OK, well, we'll talk a bit more about the campaign in a moment, but Naomi, if we could talk to you. This matters so much to you personally, doesn't it, because of what happened to your son, Jamie?
Absolutely.
Just in your own time, do you want to just tell us what happened to him?
Yeah, so Jamie was just at a friend's house on New Year's Eve, welcoming in the new year, just watched some fireworks, and at 2:20 in the morning, Jamie collapsed, just turned to his friend and said he felt a bit funny, and he collapsed and sadly went into cardiac arrest. Sadly for Jamie, an ambulance took well over 17 minutes to reach him, and there was a defibrillator 2 minutes away, but sadly it was locked inside a school and it wasn't accessible. His friends could be heard on the 999 call saying, go and get the defibrillator from the school, break the window, let's get the defibrillator out. And sadly, Jamie's heart was beating out of his chest even right up until the day we lost him, but because of the oxygen starvation to Jamie's brain, because the defibrillator hadn't got onto him quick enough, we lost him on the 5th of January. But we made it our priority to get defibrillators accessible in communities, and we're working alongside so many charities, and like I was talking to Mark before, and grieving families are getting defibrillators out there. It shouldn't be down to grieving families. There should be help. There should be help from the government, and there should be funding pumped into this. It's relieving pressure on the NHS to get defibrillators out there, and the training to encourage people to use them. Without that, there's that fear about defibrillators, but it's simple. They save lives, and a defibrillator that was accessible for Jamie on that night would have saved his life. He had a 70% chance of survival until the realisation that they couldn't get to that defibrillator. And he was an 18-year-old healthy boy, the same as Oliver. You know, you can't pick and choose when and where you're going to have your cardiac arrest, and sadly for Jamie, it was at 2:20 a.m.
James, these stories are just horrific, aren't they? It's awful to hear the situation that two families and many, many, many more families across the country have been left in. This piece of kit is vital for saving lives, but it needs to be accessible, doesn't it? And it needs to be used by someone who has a clue about what they're doing.
It does. You know, as a country, we can do much better. We must do much better. We don't do well in terms of the international rankings. If we compare ourselves to countries like Norway, for example, we know there are so many more lives that can be saved each year. We reckon over 1,000 lives could be saved, additional lives could be saved. Not everyone can be saved, but everyone can be given the chance of survival. And it's a very simple process, and it relies upon people acting quickly. It relies upon all of us acting quickly, because every minute counts. For every minute that nothing is done, a person's chance of survival decreases by about 10%. So if we as members of the public wait, then very often we wait too long. So it's absolutely essential that we start chest compressions immediately. Phone 999, they'll talk you through what to do. And the thing about a defibrillator is it's almost like having an additional medical expert there beside you, because as soon as you open it and switch it on, it starts talking to you. And we need to actually remove that sense of fear and nervousness that so many people have. If you get an early application of a defib, it can double somebody's chances of survival. So it's incumbent upon us as a society, in the same way it's incumbent upon government using wisely taxpayers' money to make sure that we get better, because we can get better and lives can be saved and we can avoid the tragedies we're talking about today.
The terrible irony about what happened to Jamie was that there was a defibrillator in a school nearby, but because it was the middle of the night and it wasn't term time, it was locked away and couldn't be reached. So I suppose for you, great they're put into schools, but what's your message about accessibility? What are your thoughts on where they should go, in or on or outside schools?
Well, as you said, we 100% back Mark in getting defibrillators into schools. It's a huge step, and obviously the campaigning has been for 11 years to get them there. All of OurJay's defibrillators, Jamie's foundation is called OurJay Foundation, and all of our defibrillators are 24/7 accessible, and we're determined to get them into communities. Like I said, you can't pick and choose where and when you're going to have your cardiac arrest, and they need to be 24/7 accessible. So Jamie's friends, unfortunately, you know, his 17-year-old friend did amazing CPR on him, and he still had a shockable output at 20 minutes, but he couldn't get to the defibrillator, which was the piece of equipment that was needed. All of our cabinets are PIN coded, they're all registered on the circuit, and when you call 999 you can get access to them. I just feel that there's too much talking and not enough doing. These pieces of equipment can be made fully accessible. It's £1,200 for a fully accessible defibrillator on the wall. We've been supported by businesses in Rugby where Jamie collapsed. Our electrician, Top Marks, they install all of ours for free for us. Ask the question. We need doers, not sayers, and this is the problem.
I wonder if you would echo that, Mark. Yes.
Most definitely. I mean, the government should just step up and legislate it. Whenever you see a fire extinguisher, put a defib above it. It never cost the government a penny to legislate the fire extinguisher law. And what did he say to you in a fire? Get out. Don't even use the fire extinguisher. Yeah. Go to the assembly point, make sure everyone's there. This is a different shout. This is getting, because the person standing next to you, if you have a cardiac arrest and there's a defib, an accessible defib there, will play a major part in saving your life. They will be the first link in the chain of survival.
The government say that the rollout will start soon. I know you've got meetings ahead, you've said that, but in terms of this point of access, what thoughts do you have, Mark, about where they're put, that idea that they're not just locked away in schools? Because I guess the temptation is you don't want them vandalised or nicked, that would be terrible, but they've got to be usable.
Accessible, yeah. I mean, my theory was if there's a boundary wall, then put it on that side of the wall so the public can use it. Yeah, but most schools now, they're like, well, the high schools and the senior schools, they're like sports centres anyway, aren't they? So they're open till like 10, half 10 at night with accessible. I mean, we've, as a foundation, we place 6,000 out across our country, and I've delivered everyone personally, because you've got to get the word out there, and you've got to tell them. And we give awareness training of 135,000 people, but the lives saved is 68. Yeah, so it's working, and it does work. And once you start this, you can't stop. There's no way the Oliver King Foundation, we've got no reverse gear. We're going forward. We will get full legislation this year.
James, what would you like to see happen next? Obviously, we're hearing two very, very powerful stories here. What is the next thing that needs to happen?
So, moving forward as a society, we need to get to a point where we don't just rely upon grieving families. This is a public health challenge. This is a public health challenge that can affect any person at any time. We also know that it significantly impacts many of the more disadvantaged areas within society as well. So we need to look at it as a public health challenge. But it's a public health challenge that we can address, we can get much better at. And just to echo what you say, we need to have a situation where if you are faced with this emergency, you don't necessarily have to think too much about where it is. It's got to be there. It's got to be second nature, and it's got to be the second thing we see.
People have got to know how to use it. haven't
Yes.
they? Yeah. Naomi, I just noticed there your gold badge. Do you want to explain? Because that
Yeah, so-
a year on is the legacy which you're
It's
born
actually a year ago today that we were approached in the hospital while Jamie was on life support. And Jamie was an organ donor. So Jamie had signed the organ donation register 3 times. He was such an old head on young shoulders. He signed it when he was 16, again when he applied for his driving licence at 17. And the day after his 18th birthday, we still don't know why he did that. But on the night we said goodbye to him, he actually already saved 5 lives, including that of an 8-month-old baby girl with a partial liver transplant. So coming out of, which has been a horrific festive season for us for obvious reasons, in the back of our minds we know that there's 5 families out there who have spent another Christmas with their loved one, and you know that, I wouldn't say it brings us comfort because nothing does at the moment, but to know that those people have still got their loved ones is amazing. Going on from that, if the defibrillators were out there and there was more funding and it wasn't so reliant on grieving families, there could be thousands of lives saved and people spending thousands more Christmases with their loved ones. We're working with so many charities at the moment, not just the Oliver King Foundation, but the Paul Allen Project and also the Daniel Baird Foundation. We have bleed kits in all of Jamie's defibrillator cabinets. So that's actually 2 life-saving pieces of equipment, which to us is just vital. Why not? Let's get as many life-saving pieces of equipment into these cabinets as we possibly can and accessible to everybody, because that's what's needed, and we need to be saving lives, not just talking about it.
I can sense the determination around this sofa this morning.
Yeah,
Can't you?
absolutely.
It's remarkable.
There's no
Thank you
reverse
all.
gears here.
Yeah.
No reverse gears. Thank you all so much for coming in.
Thank
Thanks for
you
bringing
so
Teddy
much.
as well.
Oh yeah, sorry, Jamie was a huge Leicester Tigers fan, and we're looking for ambassadors to support our campaign. So, you know, Jamie's love of rugby and love of Leicester Tigers shone through him. So, thank you so much.
Okay, well, thanks for coming in. And
Thank you.
Thank you
all
very
the best
much.
to everybody.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Do stay with us. The headlines are coming right up.